Greetings, fellow book enthusiasts, and welcome back to Timeless Tales and Thoughts. Today, I would like to share with you my thoughts on Shakespeare. Long time ago, in a whole nother lifetime, when I was in high school, I was introduced to Shakespeare for the very first time in 9th grade. Much like our typical American teenagers are still being introduced to Shakespeare for the first time in 9th grade in 2026. First play I ever read Shakespeare was his famous tragedy, Romeo and Juliet. At the end of this play, I disliked it so much, I never wanted to see Shakespeare again. Honest truth. I made it through this short unit on Shakespeare, reading the play, getting through the tests and the quizzes with an acceptable grade, and I moved on, and I was like, never picking up Shakespeare again. This is terrible. This is awful. Fast forward 3 years, when I was in 12th grade, I had an English language arts electives that I had to choose. Because when I was in high school, where I went to high school after 10th grade, you no longer had to take the state-mandated English language arts classes if you had passed all the state testing, and you got to have electives for your language arts in 11th and 12th grade. So in 12th grade, there weren't a lot of options. And when I weighed all the options, it's like, I'm really not interested in this. I like this one, but I need to have two because I need to have one for first semester and I need to have one for second semester. So weighing all my options for the ones that I wasn't too much of a fan of having to go through, I ended up taking my first semester elective as a Shakespeare class. And boy, did my outlook on Shakespeare change. Probably because the teacher had more time to really go through every story, take it step by step, page by page, teach us the language, teach us how Shakespeare wrote in Old English and how to understand the Old English, teach us what certain words meant versus what it would be in the modern day versus how it was spoken in Old English. One of the greatest things she did was she involved us. Every day we sat in a circle and each student had a part to read in the play. So my understanding of Shakespeare changed, my feelings for Shakespeare changed, and by the end of this class, I absolutely was in a Shakespeare phase of my life. We only read 4 or 5 plays before the end of the semester, because also after we read the play, we would watch the movie that went along with it. And then I wanted to read more. I wanted to read some of the ones we didn't get to. So I went through this phase and I read different Shakespeare plays. But there's one version of Shakespeare's plays that I read in class, and those were the only versions that I looked for when I went to the bookstore to pick up my Shakespeare books that I wanted to read on my own. Why? Because it was detailed, it was explanatory, it didn't leave you hanging. The Folger Shakespeare Library is an excellent version of Shakespeare's plays, in my opinion. Why? It gives you notes. For starters, it gives you a quick summary of the play. It tells you how to go about reading Shakespeare's language. It tells you a little bit about Shakespeare's life, all before you get into the play. It talks to you about Shakespeare's theater. and it provides you with an introduction to the text. So not only did the teacher provide us with great information, these books were there to help guide us. The new folder library for Shakespeare, I would never read any other version of Shakespeare's books. Another cool thing, as you're reading the play is on one side, and on the other side is a description of words that you may not know. It's like a little glossary right there, and sometimes there's illustrations to help you visualize what was happening on the other page, or a visualization of a word that you needed to understand. Okay, so now for the fun part. Shakespeare tragedy or Shakespeare comedy? Which do you prefer? Tragedies like Romeo and Juliet, or comedies like A Midsummer Night's Dream? For me, I choose Shakespeare's comedies. It was a hard choice for me between A Midsummer Night's Dream and Taming of the Shrew, but ultimately my favorite comedy play from Shakespeare is A Midsummer Night's Dream. Why? Because it's full of fantasy and fun and playfulness, impishness. It's a fun story that makes me laugh all the time. So what is A Midsummer Night's Dream all about? Read the Shakespeare Midsummer Night's Dream notes here in the front of my new folder library Shakespeare book from A Midsummer Night's Dream. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare confronts us with mysterious images of romantic desire. There are Theseus and Hippolyta about to be married. Both are strange and wonderful figures from classical mythology. Theseus is a great warrior and a kinsman of Hercules. She is an Amazon, a warrior woman defeated in battle by Theseus. His longing for the wedding day opens the play, and the play closes with their exit to their marriage bed. Within Theseus's world of Athens, two young men and two young women sort themselves out into marriageable couples, but only after one triangle with Hermia at the apex and Helena excluded is temporarily replaced by another, this time with Helena at the apex and Hermia excluded. At each point, the fickle young men think they are behaving rationally and responsibly as infatuation, sometimes caused by a magic flower, sometimes not, leads them into fierce claims and counterclaims, and the audience is shown the power of desire to take over one's vision and one's actions. By presenting the young lovers as almost interchangeable, Shakespeare displays and probes the mystery of how lovers find differences, compelling, life-shaping differences, where there seems to be only likeness. In the woods outside of Athens, where the lovers suffer their strange love experiences, we find yet another image of desire, these involving the king and queen of fairyland, and an Athenian weaver transformed into, I'm going to say, a donkey. That's not what it says here, but I'm going to say a donkey-headed figure. King Oberon and Queen Titania are engaged in a near-epic battle over custody of an orphan boy. The king uses magic to make the queen fall in love with the monster. That would be the donkey. The monster, a simple weaver named Bottom, who came into the woods with his companions to rehearse a play for Theseus and Hippolyta's wedding, is himself the victim of magic. He has been turned into a monster by Oberon's helper, a hobgoblin or Puck named Robin Goodfellow. The love experience of Titania and Bottom is playing out of the familiar Beauty and the Beast story, and like the stories of the young lovers, it makes us wonder at the power of infatuation to transform the image of the beloved in the lover's eyes. Finally, there is a tragic love story of Pyramus and Thisbe ineptly written and staged by Bottom and his working companions. In this story, romantic love leads to a double suicide, provoking only mirth in the onstage audience, but reminding us once again of the extraordinary power of desire. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, one of Shakespeare's most popular plays, Shakespeare stages the workings of love in ways that have fascinated generations of playgoers and readers. After you have read the play, we invite you to read A Modern Perspective on A Midsummer Night's Dream, written by Professor Catherine Belsey of Cardiff University, printed at the back of the book. Oh yes, I did forget to mention that when I was talking about why this book, why this version of the books is awesome, because you always have, at the end of each play, a modern perspective. Lots going on in this story. Three different stories in one story, because you have the main story of the young couples, you have the story of Bottom, who gets turned into the donkey, and the fairy queen, and of course you have the play within the play of Pyramus and Thisbe that they're practicing for the wedding. Crazy fun, fantastic story. If you want to read a Shakespeare comedy, if you've never read a Shakespeare comedy, this is a great one to start with. It's fun, it's exciting, and it'll make you laugh. So make sure you get this one. New folder library, Shakespeare version of all your Shakespeare books, because it will help you and guide you through the entire play. So please like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends if they're looking for their next great read, or they want to relive or re-experience a story that they've already read. And as always, happy reading.